lot of people don't realize that the pier is Main Street. The restaurant at the end of the pier, that's one Main Street. Huntington Beach starts at the end of the pier. So the tower to me has always been kind of like the first skyscraper in Huntington Beach. It's so iconic, it's so unique. So to come out here, my mind flashes back to 100 years ago. I could imagine the oil wells off in the distance, all the fishermen lining the pier. So for me, it's a chance to see the future because you can watch the development of Huntington Beach, but you also see the past from up there.
I'm Chris Epting. History excites me, especially history that's waiting to be uncovered. I feel like a detective sometimes, sifting through clues, chasing down leads, and examining evidence. That's why I've written so many books about it. When you discover an untold story, it sparks the imagination, it connects you to the past, and sometimes it even helps you see into the future. Welcome to Hidden Huntington Beach. Tower Zero is one of the most important structures in Huntington Beach. In 1963, Captain Max Bowman helped build and design the original Tower Zero on the pier. The tower was moved to the new pier in 1991 and it was replaced in 2000. But what happened to the old wooden original? For years, it was kept in a storage yard on Golden West in full public view. But then, in the early 2000s, it was moved to Midway City. This is where the story gets interesting. By all accounts, it sat in the parking lot at the American Legion Hall located in Midway City. Supposedly, the American Legion had raised money to have it restored, but within a year or so, it disappeared, and nobody seems to know where it went. And though there are rumors about where the tower may be located today, I have not been able to substantiate anything. That said, there are still some great personal stories connected not just to the old tower, but the new tower as well.
There's a handful of places in Huntington Beach that everybody wants to get to, but nobody really can. One of them, I think, is Tower Zero, where we are right now.
My name's Karen Jester. I'm a supervising ocean lifeguard, and I've been here for 13 years.
Talk about what it's like to come here, because for decades, there's been a tower here, and it's been really the most iconic place in the city.
Yes, it's definitely iconic. I feel very lucky that I get to call this my office. Not only do I have an amazing view, but working up in Tower Zero, I get to help all the other lifeguards as well, because that's kind of the role of the Tower Zero lifeguard, is helping coach the tower guards and making sure that they're going on the right rescues and helping out the unit operators and sending them to the right rescues. So it's really a very pivotal role in our perimeter defense system, which is making sure that everyone's always backed up no matter what kind of call that they're on.
How do you communicate with all the different guards up here? Is it all radio? Like, describe what it's like when something happens that you've got to tend to. How does that work exactly?
So up in Tower Zero, we have phones, we have radios, we have binoculars. So these are all tools that we use to communicate with the tower guards and the the trucks. And basically, if we have anything that we see in the water that we need a tower guard to go respond to, we can give them a call on the phone. And they'll pick it up and we can say, hey, do you see those two people in that rip current to the right of your tower? They'll say yes, and we're like, all right, go get them. And then we can radio to the truck, hey, Tower 4 is gonna be going on a rescue near the pier, and we need you to respond to it.
I know there's an old vintage set of binoculars up there that you use from an old ship or something?
From an old naval ship, yes. And I can only imagine how many people have looked through those binos and what they've seen, and it's pretty cool to look through such historical binoculars.
On a clear day, how far down would you notice something wrong?
Our binoculars, the ones that are from the old naval ship, enable us to see people in the water all the way to Beach Boulevard.
Wow.
And it is a little bit harder to see all the way to Sea Point, but we do have the ability to see people in the water all the way to Sea Point. And so that is why, we have those binos up there, is because we can see so far, and we can send a truck that's maybe at Tower 7 and say, hey, we need you to go to Tower 22 and look at these swimmers. And that's exactly what Tower Zero is for, is seeing the things that the trucks aren't able to see.
Now, you've got like a bit of a family legacy here. Your dad, talk about your father a little bit.
Yeah, so my dad was a lifeguard here in the 80s for almost 10 years, and my sister was a lifeguard here as well until recently for 15 years. So it really is in my blood to be down here, and I love it, and I feel very grateful that they were able to show me the ropes and ensure my success down here as well.
But did either of them get to work in Tower Zero?
Yes, both of them did get to work Tower Zero, and so when I'm up there, not only do I feel like it's very cool for me, but it's a very cool family legacy that we're all able to have done the same job and do it in our own way.
What's the percentage of people that actually get to come and work at Tower Zero? Because you were saying it's a pretty exclusive company, right?
Just because it is such a serious position that is so much responsibility, to put it on someone who doesn't have that many years of experience could be possibly detrimental.
You know, the tower that was here before this one, on the older pier before all the storms took it down, late 80s, early 90s, that particular tower is somewhere in existence in Southern California. So we may have to follow up with you and maybe get your dad involved and try and track that thing down.
I think we should. It'd be amazing because obviously, you know, I didn't work in the old towers here, but my dad did, and I think it'd be pretty amazing to get to see it, and it'd feel really cool and special.
Ken, when you work here, are you usually alone? Like, what's the staffing like on a regular basis here?
So we are all trained to work in Tower Zero alone, but the best time to work Tower Zero is with 2 lifeguards, because you have someone watching south side and someone watching north side. If there's, say, 5 towers all on a rescue at the same time, which happens quite frequently, our beach is very busy, and there's only 1 unit available to respond, we can tell that unit, all right, proceed to Tower 3 or proceed to Tower 19, whatever is going to be the gnarliest that we need to fill in that hole. We always have a guard up in Tower Zero from sunrise to sunset, 365 days a year, no matter what, rain or shine. And it is a lot of responsibility, so to have 2 people up in Zero is perfect.
I've known Karen since she was 9 years old. When she was part of the Junior Gardens program, I was her instructor for one of the summers.
Little do you know where people are going to end up. You're both going to be in Tower Zero. And
You're telling me. Most of these individuals who are working for the department were one of my junior guards.
What's it like up here? You've got to be sort of on constant guard of what's going on, right?
Anyone that goes out a little bit farther than maybe waist deep, we got eyes on them like right away.
And there are some other tasks that we're kind of like tasked with up here in this tower. It's a weather reporting station. We have a surf report that we do, some other things like that. As well as, you know, if something did happen, it's kind of our job to know where to send resources before it happens. So kind of always, the wheel's always churning a little bit about where the units are on the beach, where the trucks are, what the lifeguards are doing, if we had to pull some lifeguards out of towers.
This is one of those places that we know people at home, I'm sure, are excited to see and just know what it's like in here. And it's a pretty sparse environment. I mean, you've got your walkie-talkies, your binoculars and things. You don't need a lot up here, right? It's just about communication.
Sometimes it feels like too much is up here because, you know, when it's on a busy day, you got maybe the outside phone ringing, then maybe the police department calls you, and then you got a tower guard calling you, and then headquarters is hitting you up on the intercom asking you where all the trucks are. So it can be a lot up here, but at the end of the day, it is quite simple. Our job is just to watch the water at the end of the day. So.
All right. Well, thanks for having us up. We really appreciate the secret glimpse up here.
Hi, my name is Sergeant Brad Smith. I've been with the Huntington Beach Police Department for the past 25 years.
I'll call you Brad because we
Please.
kind of know each other. We have a little hidden history of our own. 12 years ago, I wrote a story about your son.
Yes, about my son Bradley. Make a long story short, he had a golf ball driven into the back of his head. He had crushing of his skull, bleeding on his brain. Miraculously, the next day, the blood dissipated, and 3 days later, he walked out of the hospital, and we were very blessed.
A real miracle. I remember writing about that and got to know your family then. And here we are today, 12 years later, talking about your history in Huntington Beach. We're talking about the history of Tower Zero today. You have your own history here, but yours is really interesting. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, you came up through the Junior Guards program, right?
Yeah, I started late. I actually was a swimmer water polo player, and my coaches were Mike Ike and Ray Bray, who are legendary figures here at the department. They talked about a captain's program, which is the elite of the Junior Guard program, and they were taking those junior guards and training them to be lifeguards. So I actually joined when I was 16 years old, the Junior Guard program, and then a year later at age 17, I became a lifeguard here for Huntington Beach.
But you were what was the distinction? You were the first kid to jump off the new pier?
Well, I was actually a lifeguard at the time, but I was the first one to officially jump off the construction of the new pier. I wanted to be a deckhand, which is the sidekick that works on the boats. So I wanted to impress my boss, go very shallow, about 2 to 3 feet, hit it about a 45-degree angle. But at the time, I didn't realize the new pier is about 15 feet higher. So that extra 15 feet, I landed flat on my back, left myself a nice bruise.
And then you worked here in Tower Zero for how long?
Between being a tower guard, a lifeguard 2, and a supervisor, I worked here 13 years. When the pier itself was under construction, I was out here and a construction worker fell off the pier while I was working. So I jumped off the pier, swam them in and thought, my gosh, man, I must be really out of shape because how hard can it be to pull one person in? I'm getting there. We finally get to shore. When I looked down, I realized he never took off his tool belt. So he had his hammer still hanging, a couple of large pouches. And I'm like, wow, you didn't think of taking that off, but hey, so we saved him and his tools.
And then your road to becoming a Huntington Beach police officer is interesting as well. I mean, again, your own hidden history of Huntington Beach is like its own episode.
So I remember working in Zero Tower and having a sergeant come up here looking in the binoculars for people drinking on the beach or doing something they weren't supposed to. And I really started getting to know the police officers and see how they operate, and really started getting an affinity to think about being a police officer myself. I actually went into the mortgage business. But it was ironic because I met my wife in college and she said, you sure do talk about being a cop a lot. She goes, let me know if you want to be a cop because I don't want to be a cop's wife. And back then I was like, oh, don't worry, they'll make enough money. I don't want to be a cop. I went through the mortgage industry. It was back when it was really pumping, but there was a lot of people doing unethical things. I saw some things that I really didn't appreciate. Walked into my boss to quit and he said, you're the most honest person I ever met in this business. My wife said, do what you've always wanted to do, be a cop. And I was blessed to be picked up by the Huntington Beach Police Department and went into the academy at age 29.
Wow, so you have served the city in so many capacities. And again, your personal history from here at the tower to being a police officer, you've really done as well. And it's great to connect again after
Absolute
so many
pleasure.
years. But thank you again for all you've done on the pier for the force. We really appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Catch up.
If you want more hidden history, check out our Facebook group, which is simply Hidden Huntington Beach. We've got over 15,000 members there sharing stories and home movies and all kinds of great things. So hope you enjoy that, and we'll see you soon. Another edition of Hidden Huntington Beach.
You know, there's something about the people that spend their time up there. When we get their story about what it's like, the amount of responsibility, it would be so easy to just sort of zone out up there. It's the best view in the city. So I really learned about their focus and their commitment and what it takes to do an effective job up there. You don't really feel it, I don't think, until you're in that room and you realize just the amount of responsibility that's there. They've got to be so aware all the time. I'm just very impressed by that.